Last month, we revisited a few highlights from the 2025 Design-Build Conference and Expo in Las Vegas in early November. We talked to the student teams from the National Design-Build Student Competition and some of the winners of DBIA Project and Team Awards. This month on the Design-Build Delivers podcast, brought to you by ArtConts, an Autodesk Platinum partner, we're doing another conference roundup, this time focused on some of the key individuals who won awards. Specifically, we chat with the 4 Distinguished Leadership Award winners, Britt Sanford, David Shadpour, Janice Zahn, and Jennifer Macks. And we speak to Bill Reefsteck, the Brunelleschi Lifetime Achievement Award winner. The catch with these multi-interview episodes, though, is just how hard it is to bring you the full chats with these endlessly interesting people, so what you're hearing is just a tip of a very big iceberg. There's a lot that fell to the cutting room floor this time, but I will work on some bonus content episodes to bring you the full range of fascinating ideas and, in some cases, full detours we went on. Here, though, we hit the high-level bits and bobs from those chats, starting with the first of our DLA winners, Jennifer Macks. You can really get to know Jen on the Design Build Delivers blog, which I've linked in the show notes for you to check out later. Here's a quick bio to set us up, though. Jen chaired the 2023 and 2024 DBIA Design Build Conference and Expo planning committees and served on the Education Committee during major updates to the Universal Best Practices, the core certification curriculum, and exam prep course. So Jennifer, thank you for joining the show and congratulations. I know a Distinguished Leadership Award is a pretty big deal, so I feel important that you took the time to talk to us.
Thank you. Honored, and it's always great to talk to you.
To me or to DBIA?
To both, of course.
Oh, good answer. And that's what makes you a distinguished leader, right? Well, other than diplomacy, let's talk a little bit about your experience and your background and how you got to be where you are. So first, what drove your shift toward more hands-on, cross-disciplinary experiential learning in your work with DBIA's education?
My involvement in DBIA was seeking a place to learn more and just understand what other people were doing on their projects and how that might inform how I could work on our projects. So what I really enjoyed was the opportunity to learn from other people. So early on, really sought out some of the very early conferences. There was both the national conference as well as the specialty conferences at that time. There were other specialty conferences. I was working in healthcare and really got an opportunity to hear specifically how others were using design build on healthcare work. So for me, that was great to hear from people in the trenches. And I think what that did for me was really inform how others want to learn. I felt like it's not just enough to hear about DBIA or hear about design build in theory, but people are so craving direct, relevant experiences of what people are doing in the trenches and how you might be able to take those experiences and use them on your own work. That's actually been a really significant effort for us on the DBIA conference planning committee. We're really focused on finding sessions that are our teams sharing what's working and what's not working. Everyone always wants to talk about what's great and what's working on their projects, but we want to hear about the challenges too. We want to know what people have experienced as setbacks or communication issues, and what did they do to overcome them? Because those are the things that other people are going to learn from and be able to apply to their design build work as well.
We actually got a lot of interesting feedback regarding that exact thing from our conference attendees this year. A lot of people really liked that design build done wrong so they could see how to do it right. And I think it takes a certain level of confidence in your own performance, in your own expertise, and in your team to say, hey, man, we kind of mucked this up, but here's what we did next time. And I think that's a really important piece. And I'm glad that you guys are embracing that because it seems like people are responding to it pretty well from what we can hear too.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd all love to say our projects always go well, but the reality is design and construction, it has lots of opportunities for challenges, especially when you look at, we're not building a manufactured product. Every job we're working on, even if it's the exact same project, but it's going on a different site and different constraints, different jurisdictional issues, there's always some nuance about that project that makes it unique, that's going to have its own unique challenges associated with it. So I've never had a project that's gone 100% well. I wish I could. I mean, maybe if that happened, you wouldn't actually need me because everybody would be fine and they wouldn't need someone to help them with stuff. But knowing that we're building things and designing things that are just going to innately have challenges with it, we need to equip our teams with the ability to know what to do about that. And so the more that we can be, I don't know, be exposed and humble about, like, it's okay to share mistakes. It's okay to share challenges that have happened. And what did you personally learn from those? And what did your teams learn from them too? How did you overcome that stuff? That's just, for me, is just accelerating the learning curve for other projects and other individuals to learn from that stuff more quickly and kind of tuck that in their basket and take that moving forward.
And that also creates a good leader that people can trust. And I think that's obviously pretty important in a Distinguished Leadership Award. You once worked in an architect's office. Now, you said you're not from the design side, but you did work in an architect's office. So how has understanding workflows from other disciplines like that, how has that influenced the way you lead and how you collaborate today?
Design build's a really interesting thing. If you do it well and do it right and really focus on the whole team being successful, there really shouldn't be significantly defined lines on what individuals are working on the project. So, traditionally on a project, the contractor maybe isn't involved in the design process. But what I love about Design Build is that we have a really early seat at the table to be a partner and collaborator with the design team. So as you mentioned early in my career, one of the first design build jobs I was working on, I realized I really didn't understand enough about what the design team was doing to produce the drawings. And so I said, can I move in for a while? Like, I want to be in your office. I want to be there where the decisions are made and where the conversations are happening so that I can better figure out how to be of better value and service to you. Because the reality is decisions are getting made every day on the design, micro decisions and macro decisions that potentially have schedule implications, have material selection issues, have budget issues that need to be decided. I remember early on hearing, like, the best design is when you're always moving forward. You're not having to second guess a decision or do VE. Everybody has the dreaded VE term. If you can draw it once and draw it to meet the owner's expectations, meet the schedule, budget, have the right materials available, it's the utopia of design, right? Not having to do any rework. So for me, that idea that I could sit in someone's office and see what the different types of decisions that were being made, it's so well-rounded me on it made me a better builder. I was better able to figure out what kind of information people needed from a budget standpoint. I could better figure out how to develop my project schedules and how to ultimately build stuff in the field because I understood what everybody else was thinking about, capturing the best practices, the best brain think of what was in everybody else's head. To me, that's the utopia of design build. If you can get to a point where everybody is able to offer their valued contributions, regardless of what their role is on the project team, and all of those things help elevate and make the project team better, those are the fun projects to work on.
Well, it sounds like at the very least you're enjoying the process, and I do hope you're promoting that to other people. But I've got one bonus question for you. What's next for you? DBIA fellow or Brunelleschi? Is that on the horizon?
I don't know. I don't think in that way. I'm so excited about finding additional classes and opportunities for us to continue to elevate the educational offerings that we have at DBIA. There's so many things that all of us have been learning and experiencing. So I think the more that we can create course content or additional sessions at the conferences that allow people to learn from those experiences, that's where I'm very passionate about.
And that could lead to a fellow or a Brunelleschi. I'm not, ruling those things out. Our next DLA winner is Britt Sanford. Britt and I veered deep into talking about living in Alabama, but I'm saving that for the blooper reel. Instead, listen here to what she has to say about working with the FBI, a DBIA owner of choice. Just like Jen and all the other DLA winners, you can learn more about what she does on the Design Build Delivers blog. As a contracting officer at the FBI, Britt helped lead an $82 million national security and intelligence center of excellence using Design Build. The project was completed within budget in under 9 months despite difficult market conditions, and it now serves as a model for future NASA projects on Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville. First of all, Britt, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today and to be on the show. As a Distinguished Leadership Award winner, you've said owners have to keep the fire alive within the agency. I really liked that quote when you were answering some of our questions from the Design Build Delivers blog. What does that mean in practice?
So what that means in practice for us, especially our internal group, is basically building a fire. So to keep the fire alive, you start with the basic steps of building the fire. Step one is, you gather the wood and you start to put them into a pile. This would be determining who all is going to be involved in the design build project or projects if you have more than one going on. And then you train everyone from the basics. Everyone is trained together. So every question's answered, everything gets ironed out from the beginning. And then step two of the fire is, you start to light the matches. You have your pile, now you gotta make little bitty lights around the fire. So each match for us is a project that's slowly starting to come to life. As you have your whole group, each one is assigned smaller projects, and each project is slowly applying the basics we've all learned. Step three, the fire's burning. Once you light your matches, all the projects are alive and running well within the groups that have been created. Everything is starting to move in a seamless pattern. Step four of a fire is sustaining a fire. So to sustain a fire with design build is continuous improvements, the lessons learned from another project being shared with other projects that may have a different schedule, and bringing on new people to keep backfilling the design mindset, to keep it alive, to keep, hey, this person is in an entry position, but they're more experienced. So let's move them to a more experienced project and backfill that to keep the mindset. So at the FBI, each project has its own small team to carry out the design build process and to master it. Once a project ends, everyone rolls into another project to keep the momentum going. You don't just do one and get off unless you want to. But if you are truly in the design build mindset, you keep it alive with every work you do from that initial step.
I hope everyone can take away from that you said that, kind of a one and done thing. We don't want people to do that, but if so, at least let's hope they do it right. So how now does receiving the Distinguished Leadership Award reflect your experiences leading major design build projects for both the FBI and NASA?
Helping NASA showed me that I knew more than I actually thought I knew. So one day I received a call, a coworker and I received a call. NASA's about 5 minutes from our building on site in Huntsville, Alabama. And we received a call and we're like, hey, we have some people in a room that are asking questions. Would you guys mind coming down and answering a few? It'll be easier than trying to get a team set up. And we said, sure. No problem. Get in the car for 5 minutes, go talk. I like in-person meetings. I like answering questions. So we were like, yeah, why not? So we walk into this room of 30 people waiting to ask gunfire questions. Like no agenda, just they started throwing the questions at every angle. My coworker took one side of the room and I took the other side of the room. So it was definitely made it an interesting day, but it was exciting. It was fun. It was the fire, the random knowledge that I realized I had learned through all my experiences. And this is where we really realized that we can help other agencies skip the wrong ways of doing design build. We can take our lessons learned and apply it and help everyone else. It made me realize how far being transparent and collaborative will actually carry you internal of a project and even external of speaking to the process.
And there's nothing that really tests your knowledge like something that you're not really totally prepared for. So throwing you in a room, that's not a small room of people, and just expecting you to be able to pull from your experience really shows that you and your colleague really needed to know your stuff.
Yes, it was very, the phone call said a few people, and a few people was, to me, is a lot of people.
Yeah, a few does not usually comprise 30, but sure. So because you're doing such a great job to the point of you've been awarded for it, what is a piece of advice you would give to other owners who also want to lead culture change through design build?
So my biggest advice is be transparent. Do not be afraid to communicate. Yes, if you communicate with one vendor, you have to communicate with all, but it doesn't take that much time. When I first started, if I talked, I'd be protested. Well, I've actually found that to be the opposite. If I talk, people are less likely to protest because we're understanding, we're getting on the same page. There's no miscommunication, no mishaps. If you engage with your vendor from day one, you're going to get the product you want in the budget you're wanting. I think the biggest part of not being transparent is you want something, but the vendor doesn't know exactly what you want. So there's the miscommunication where they're going to deliver something they think you want, but it was never what you wanted because there was no true communication. I kind of think of it like a marriage where like rule one of getting married is always define your unmet expectations so there are no unmet expectations. It's the same concept.
It sounds like key to all of this is communicating, is taking that time on the front end to communicate. And like you said, it doesn't take that much time because then if you voice those unmet expectations and those unsaid ideas early on, then you don't have to waste extra time doing it on the back end when things have already gone pear-shaped. Well, thank you. And I really appreciate, again, you taking the time to do this.
I did not even know I got entered until I won it.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, they kept it. So NASA and my team lead, my former, like before going to IT role when I was in construction, my team lead, they put this together for me. So I had no idea until it hit my inbox.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. And congratulations for it. Next up, David Shadfor and I basically fell right off the cliff of Design-Build into philosophical discussions about pros and cons of AI. But that's dynamite bonus content, so you're not going to hear that here. Here, we focus on David's influence on the next generation and how he's taking what he's learned to set his fellow young professionals up for similar success. A bit about David: he's a dual licensed mechanical and electrical engineer, and he serves as executive project manager at Shadfor Consulting Engineers. He also chairs the firm's Innovation and Education Committee, where he helped embed design-build principles into every layer of practice. I was reading your bio and reading through some of your work and doing the creepy research that us podcast hosts like to do on our guests. You know, you've got a really, really impressive background. We don't have to tell you that. You're a Distinguished Leadership Award winner. But as a young professional, this really does put you into a position of, this is what our young professionals need to live up to. So you are, for 2025, the example of a young professional leader who really stands out. What I want to talk to you about today, just for a few minutes, is some of how your work has influenced your perspective and some of how your perspective influences your work.
First of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And thank you for the recognition, all the hard work, all those late nights. Someone recognizes it.
I mean, you know, that's one way to look at it. We finally found you.
Exactly. But yeah, the human aspect is becoming more important than ever because I really think information is becoming commoditized. And so in the old days, even 10, 20, 30 years ago, what you knew was very important. But now the what is commoditized. You can go on ChatGPT, you can go on Google, everything is free at your fingertips. And so what's the differentiator is how you can leverage that information. And soon, probably you can leverage it with AI. But today, the only way to leverage that information is by surrounding yourself and collaborating with other human beings and leveraging all of that information together to build and do great things.
You have led some impressive design build projects, Coast Guard facility that comes up over and over that people can read about in your bio on our blog, on the Design Build Delivers blog. How do you see that work connecting to this recognition?
I think to really change the world, we have to focus on the next generation because that's where there's going to be exponential benefit or butterfly effect or whatever you want to call it. And I think what we need to do is encourage collaboration and thinking outside the box, leveraging the AI in schools. I look at schools these days and I see the teacher comes and says, hey, here's one way to do something. And I'm going to give you the question. I'm going to give you the potential answers. There's only one right answer. And if you don't do it my way and show your work, it's wrong. And by the way, no collaborating with anybody against you or else you'll be expelled and you're going to be considered a cheater. Let's look at the real world though. In industry, somebody comes and works with me. I don't know the question. I don't know the potential answers. I don't even know which answer is right. There's probably multiple right answers. Get to the mountaintop however you want, as long as you reach the summit. That's all I care about. And by the way, I want you to collaborate with as many people as possible, including using this new technology called AI that's considered cheating in school. And so I think we really need to look at how we're training, teaching, guiding the next generation because that's the future. And I want to encourage the next generation to think outside the box and not be limited by the old way of doing things.
This actually really hits on a personal note for me too. I know you teach. I've saw that. And so do I. I do it to sort of stay on top of things because nothing makes you stay ahead of the curve like needing to teach it to people who are coming after you. But as you mentioned, that collaboration, that ability to find multiple correct answers, especially in the field, that we're talking about here, AEC, that isn't a one size fits all. And we know that. That's why Design Build exists. And the ability to ask this technology to take out some of the wheel spinning time or to give you options to work through means you get to deliver faster, you get to deliver better, you get to really customize the experience to the strengths of your team, who are presumably all working with one another. So that goes back to the question about the projects and their connection to the Leadership Award. So talk to me about that now and how you think the role you've played on these projects has led you to this award.
I love what I do, and I want to change the world, make it a better place when I leave than when I was born. So the awards or recognition or really any kind of words or compensation, anything like that, I'm not even paying attention to. My goal is to innovate through creative designs. And I find that the technology, I think with first principle thinking. So a lot of folks, what they'll do is they'll just see what we did last year, tweak a couple things and call it this year's design or this year's model. But technology is changing so fast. You should look at what's currently available with technology and have a blank slate for the project of today.
You talked a little already about the next generation, but let's focus on that and its connection to your work here. How do you inspire young professionals who maybe are, lateral to you, coming up a little behind you, to see design build as more than just another delivery method?
So design build is a very efficient way to complete these projects, and it's becoming more efficient because of technology. So things are moving so fast these days. You can just send an email, send a Teams message. You can work on the cloud. You can work in Autodesk, Revit, live models. And so collaboration is becoming as dynamic as ever. And that lends itself to design build type contracts and projects. Old days, the technology may have not been there to fully support design build because you couldn't just work on the live model on the cloud. You had to finish a package, architect had to finish the floor plan, maybe even send it in the mail or a fax machine, everybody had to get it. And it was very regimented with different phases. And it almost lent itself more to design, bid, build, because everything was so slow. I mean, shoot, I remember the days you used to call somebody, and if they didn't answer and get back to you for 48 hours, you didn't worry at all. Now, if I text somebody and they don't get back to me in 20 minutes, I'm thinking, do I need to call the cops for reporting a missing person?
Or my sister who tracks my location if I don't answer the phone.
So I think design build, just inherent to what it is collaboration. And because of all these technologies with the cloud and internet, it makes it more important than ever to understand the process of design build and to implement it in really most projects, especially big ones.
And we've seen that with the growth that we've seen in design build, its use and the projected growth. So what you're saying, absolutely tracks with what our research shows at DBIA. So a little bit more touchy-feely side of the next generation. What is it about where you think this generation, this includes you, but then all the people you're mentoring, where all of you are going to take design build? What excites you the most about that, the future?
Really what excites me the most is how can we take technology that's changing faster than ever. And by the way, there's going to be an accelerating rate of innovation because that's how most things work in the world. So people are saying, oh, the world is changing faster than ever. Well, guess what? Next year is going to change faster, and the year after, and the year after. Because I find thinking exponentially is the way to think for most things. Let's talk about the real world. Let's talk about nature. Like, for example, if someone were to ask anybody in the world to count to 10, what would they say? They'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Because that's how we're taught from a young age to count to 10. But really, we should count exponentially because that's how our world works. Look at population growth in nature. Any species, it grows exponentially. Look at how viruses or bacteria spreads exponentially. So I really think how we should think to count is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, and so on. And so I think the same thing applies to how the next generation is going to really leverage design build. They need to understand, hey, the technology that's hit us so hard, whether it's AI or all this cloud computing or how we collaborate with each other, lending itself to design build is going to innovate faster than ever before. And that just means there's more opportunities to leverage design build more efficiently than ever before. So I think the technical side is one thing, but really how we collaborate with the various team members is going to be the best way the next generation can really push design build to the next level.
And that's what we want to hear at DBIA, right? And finally, Janice Zahn is a current Washington state legislator who got 2 bills through in her first term. It was like her first month. There's a great overview on the blog, also linked in the show notes, covering those bills and their impact on design build in Washington. Here, Janice and I get into a bit of color commentary on those bills, but we don't get into the weeds. If you want the weeds, it's on the blog. Janice was appointed to the state legislature in 2024 and elected later that year to represent the 41st Legislative District in Washington. She has many, many years of experience that she's able to bring to that, and a completely different viewpoint than most of the people we've talked to on the show this year. What does receiving a DBIA Distinguished Leadership Award mean to you, both personally and professionally?
It is amazing because I have been such a champion for collaborative leadership models for a long time. And I remember a time where most of the projects I worked on were design, bid, build. As time passes or I started to learn more about these other delivery models, that I really started to see that design build is almost getting us back to the old master builder model where we have a really solid collaboration between design and construction in a way that from the very beginning, all of the parties, all of the people that can bring their best ideas can come together, and that through that collaboration, we get more together than we do alone. And I really see, as I've watched the kind of challenges, especially now in our economy with some of the volatility and uncertainty, while we continue to have a huge amount of infrastructure needs from old assets as well as demands for infrastructure, we need to even more maximize our really precious resources of our budgets to build the kind of transportation and infrastructure for our many communities. And the traditional way that we've delivered with design, bid, build actually doesn't satisfy the challenges we have today. I'm an engineer, right? So a lot of what we are asked to do when we're engineers is help me solve my problem. And I think that anymore, what we really need to do is say together we will find the best solution versus any one entity having the best answer. When I got in the legislature in January of this year, I really wanted to make sure that we were not creating barriers or that we were going to make sure that agencies like the Washington State Department of Transportation actually had the ability outright to use progressive design build, because we know how much the industry has been moving in that direction of not locking in the price too early in the solicitation process, but really working together to balance and find the right scope, schedule, and budget that the public agency needs for meeting their goals. So I was really excited that even though I literally started on day 10 of the legislative session, that I was able to bring my engineering, construction voice and my many years of being involved in DBIA to convince my colleagues that these 2 bills specifically around design build were really important. Both of these passed almost nearly unanimously in both House and Senate. So, what I think about a lot is how do I continue to be that voice of industry in the legislature and really help us to deliver our projects in the most efficient and effective way. So part of that is a way to help smaller businesses, whether they're designers or contractors, try out the tool with a lot less at stake and be able to really vet out how that might work and really build some capacity within, especially the more rural areas where you don't have an abundance of designers or contractors. How do we actually think holistically about building up the industry? So I do think that that is one place that more work is needed, because I do still believe that in a lot of ways, the industry thinks that design build is for the mega projects versus the fact that actually it's a good tool for some of our smaller projects.
I've been working a lot with Richard this year on some of the state level legislation and seeing what more is going on. And he He's mentioned that before, the smaller projects, so you can't be left behind.
Actually, Richard and I talked many times the last few years about, so when we have this money going to cities, how can we help them deliver on their promise of these funds? And for a lot of these cities, they may not even know that there's a design build procedure or a methodology. So what are some things we can do to help them understand the tool? And maybe it's not for every project, but for the ones that have a lot more complexity and risk and nuance, how do we help them understand that this is a tool they may want to lean into as well? But the other thing to think about is that unlike low bid, design build also gives us the ability to say, I have environmental goals. I have workforce development goals. I have lots of other things that I care about. So finding a partner really early to help us with how we prioritize and address the nuance and look at the what-if scenarios of what we can afford versus what we really want to achieve, I think that is also a really important aspect of design build, where we do that with design bid build, but we're really only doing that with our design partners. And when we use our GCCM, which CM at risk is how it's called in some other states, or CMGC, we still don't have that synergy directly between design and construction, right? It is still two separate contracts. And so I think the more that we have this almost like the master builder philosophy that of the past, we can deliver more than we can alone.
The Design Build Delivers podcast is brought to you by Archons, your technology optimization partner, helping design build teams streamline workflows with Autodesk solutions, expert support, and real-world training. Ready to work smarter and faster? Get tools, insights, and schedule your AI readiness check at archons.us/DBIA. And that wraps the 2025 Distinguished Leadership Award winners for now. Keep following the show for bonus clips from these chats. I always learn so much about the industry from these people, and it's not fair to keep it to myself or to keep it in the vault, so you will hear it soon. Our final interview in this episode is with a full-fledged legend, our 2025 Brunelleschi Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Bill Reefsteck. There are lots of great pieces about this in our arsenal, linked as always in the show notes. You can learn who Bill is, what he's done for the industry, and hear him on the podcast a little earlier in the year. Also, I will link that for you. It's always a delight to talk to him, and it's always wonderful to hear his stories. This is, as with all the other interviews, just a touch of what we got into. Thank you, big award winner, for taking the time out to talk to us. I know we've spoken on the show before.
Right.
Before, you didn't know that you were a Brunelleschi Lifetime Achievement Award winner at that time. In fact, I'm not even sure we knew. But
Right.
Talking to you, it is not a surprise. I look back at that interview and I think, well, yeah, this makes sense. So when you look at your body of work and where you were and how you got to where you are, what decisions or philosophies do you think set you up to win the Brunelleschi Award, even if at the time they didn't seem like that big of a deal?
I was looking at the tribute video and my daughter brought up volunteerism. That's something that, is something I've done all along my career. Not just my career, but other things. Like I've been a volunteer in Boy Scouts. I've been a volunteer as a coach in sports and things like that. I volunteered as a plan commissioner and did that for free for 8 years for the county of Lake County and the city of Kildare in Illinois. And it was something I just did. And I learned this from my father. My father was a volunteer in a lot of things. He was for free, he was the city attorney for our town for 20 years. That's normally a paid position in other cities, but he didn't accept a salary for it. So those are the kind of things I thought it was important to do, to be there. And in volunteering at DBIA, I got involved in committees early on. If it wasn't for the volunteers in the early years, this organization would not be where it is today. And volunteering is something that was absolutely critical to me getting this award.
It's interesting to think of volunteerism and how important that can be. My mother gives me just deep hell every time I take on some other thing for free. She says, "Are they paying you?" And I'm like, "No, they're not paying me. It's just something I want to do." And she says, you can't just give your time away. Like, that's not the point. The point is I get paid for the job I do, but I also really enjoy this, I really enjoy that, and I want to be involved in it because I want to impact it. And so when you're talking about it, it's helping sort of focus that conversation next time she gives me a hard time. I can say, yes, but it can make you a Lifetime Achievement Award winner someday.
But it also gives you the self-satisfaction of knowing that you're helping others. And it's servant leadership. And that's one of the other things that are big on my agenda is, especially with the mentorship program that we've got, helping these young people, and not just so young people either. I've got 2 mentees that are in their mid-40s, and they're at a juncture in their career that they don't know which direction they want to go. And I've been able to help them make those decisions and walk through the choices and be that secondary person that they can talk to that's not their boss, because they don't want to tell their boss that they're thinking of maybe moving to another career opportunity, So that's one of the advantages of our mentoring program.
People do think mentor equals young person, young early on. But I mean, there are these junctures in people's careers where their entire trajectory changes, and a lot of times they don't know who to turn to. So you doing that is really added value for people. But taking a little bit of a shift here, you, as a Brunelleschi Lifetime Achievement Award winner, you are a transformative leader. That's how you get to here. And every leader of that caliber has that moment where, you have to take a risk. Something you thought, this might blow up in my face, but it also might not. What is one memorable moment in your career when you said, you know what, we're going to try this, and that ultimately changed your teams, your projects, or even your direction?
One of the things that I always look back as critical in my development was I was a project manager, estimator, and I was doing work for a general contractor in Indianapolis and enjoying it and doing well. But I got invited to talk to a Japanese man who represented a large Japanese design-build company, Takanaka. And they offered me a job on the spot from that first meeting. He basically said to me, Bill-san, when can you start work for me? And I went, I have a job. And he says, I want you to work for me. It was one of those things. I went home and talked to my wife about it. And I said, I'd like to get back into the design build world, which I had been doing before, but I was working now in hard bid work. And that was a jump back. It was starting out with a new company. I was employee number 1 in the United States. It was a big opportunity, and it was kind of a leap of faith. But it was because I wanted to get back into the design build world, and they were offering that opportunity.
So it seems like it led in a good direction.
Oh, absolutely. That discussion led me to the story that I told at the interview, was where he says, go to this meeting and find out what it's all about. And I went there and I got brought in into DBIA and then signed up and made us an industry partner. And the next thing he goes, what did you not understand about not signing up for anything? And
That's right.
it was, like he said, it was one of the best things that ever happened to our company, because it put us on the same par as all the other big design builders in the United States. And it eventually led to us being able to get work with General Motors and General Electric and other US industrial companies, which before that, all we worked for were Japanese companies.
That's the interview you did with our colleague Kara a few months ago when we let you know you had, yeah. So if anybody wants to read that, that interview is on the blog. I will link it in the show notes so everybody can go get to know you even better than this. So if you could take one long-standing industry habit or assumption, something that just continues to live, and you could revise that because that thing slows down design build, what would that be that you would change, and why would you change that?
Well, the biggest thing I always hear is people that when they go into a design build for the first time, or progressive design build, they don't want to be hurt. I don't want anybody to hurt me. Or what's in it for me? That's the other side is, hey, why would I want to do this if I don't make more money or do this? And I listened to the Notre Dame football coach, Marcus Freeman. He's amazing motivator, but he says team success equals individual success. And I've been using that statement a lot lately because, they look at it and people aren't open to sharing or being there. A lot of my programs, I have a partnering meeting, a teaming meeting, or something similar to that, where we basically get everybody down and look for, we basically say, what do you want to get out of this? What do you think you can get out of this? And then we try to build a team charter. And I love the team charters because they're great opportunities to really put, what's the goal? Why are we building this? And why are we doing this? And for instance, one team charter I had was for a project called Pierce College Maintenance and Operations Building. And, a maintenance and operation building is about as mundane and boring as you can get in reality. But for these guys, it was a big deal. And their answer, we came out of that, our mission statement was to build a world-class maintenance and operations facility that services our clients, our students, our faculty, and our general community. And we printed that up on a big banner and we hung it to the outside of the trailer. And then when everybody, new worker came onto the job site, we had them sign the charter. And people took that to their heart that, it's like, I'm signing my name to this. And it's part of, I'm going to make a world-class building. And it turned out way better than they ever expected. They said, this building is beautiful. It won all kinds of awards. It won a couple DBIA awards. It's a maintenance and operations building. Not everybody says, well, high design. It's not beautiful. It's not, but it's functional. It works really well for them. And the coolest thing about it is it's net zero. It was the first net zero building built in California. So those are the kind of things that world-class can be.
Right.
And not expect it to be something special.
Well, it sounds like it was special.
Oh, it was.
Its class.
Yeah.
Things can be special even if they're not. I mean, think about if your home didn't have a toilet, you would notice. It's the things you just take for granted. And it sounds like that was one of those that you guys found a way to not just deal with a utilitarian need, but you said, let's take pride in said utilitarian need. And you're in California now, but you mentioned Notre Dame. You are a Notre Dame guy, right? That came up in the tribute video from one of your colleagues along the way. And you also just wanted to reaffirm for anybody who's listening that you are in fact a Notre Dame guy who happens to be on the West Coast. And you talked earlier about people kind of shifting paths, shifting careers, maybe in their, you said mid-40s, it could happen anytime. Looking back at your own path here, there was probably a moment somewhere where you almost didn't stay on the path you're on. There's something that maybe took you almost in another direction. What was that one moment for you?
At around the year 2000, I switched companies. And the new company I went to didn't want to be a DBIA member. And at the time, there was no such thing as individual memberships. And so I was like in a quandary as to what I could do. And I started my own little consulting practice and joined as a consultant. And I paid higher than market rate, I think. My little consulting practice could barely pay for it, but it was $125 or something like that to pay for the membership. I toyed with it. My wife and I were like, is this really worth it? It was like, I let go my contractor's license in Florida because the company says, well, we don't do work in Florida. So why do we want to do this? And I was like, well, I spent a lot of time and effort to get this thing. And then I just let it go. And the same thing with my North Carolina license and a couple other places. I just didn't need it anymore. And I almost did that, but something in the back of my head said, oh, you need to keep this DBIA thing. It's important. And I enjoyed it. And that was the other thing. And then shortly thereafter, I started teaching, and that paid for my membership until 2007, when I started work back at GKK at Perfull's Kilcarney's company. They picked up my membership.
So if you had let that lapse, we would not be having this conversation.
No, we wouldn't
right
be
now.
having this discussion.
Well, I'm glad you pulled that 125 from wherever you pulled it from. Not going to ask. You say you're a consulting firm, but hey, that's between you and your finances. But you mentioned Prafull, who was also in the tribute video. We talked about your daughter. We talked about a couple other things that showed up in that video. We talked to a lot of people, your family, your colleagues, people who've influenced your work, friends. When you watched that video, was there a moment, a message, or a person that made you see your own impact a little differently?
The impact that I kept getting when people were talking to me through the week and when they saw me and congratulated me and such, when the people that were on the video, it was quite interesting to see. But they all came up with the same keynote. I guess it was that I'd been known forever and ever of building highly competent, high functioning teams. And I'm not the guy that does everything, but I'm the guy that can assemble the team and put them together and make the team grow and go. Victor Sanvito, I also saw him at this, and he's with Southland, and Victor and I have teamed together on a number of projects. He said to me, I'm glad to see you got this. And you're the guy that's always done the deal. From day one, when I first met you, he said that I walked the walk and talked the talk, design build. And he said that no matter what the deal was, and it could be a tough situation to talk about or such, you were able to bring a consensus in most times. And I've been lucky to say I've never been involved in a litigation on one of my projects. I say this and I knock on wood because my son says you're going to be, you'll probably regret this, but I've been on a job that's never had a loss of life either in 45 years, which is unusual in this industry. I take pride in that because my projects are very safe, usually successful, and usually have the people at the end of the job always most of the time look at each other and say, where are we going next?
Well, we know the Avengers needed Nick Fury to come together. So
Right.
You are the same. You can be the Nick Fury of design build, aside from the no loss of life thing, because I don't think he can make that same claim at all. Well, as you travel to your holiday destinations, whether that's to family, friends, or into a cave where no one can see you, no one can talk to you until 2026, I support any of those decisions. I hope this episode has given you an idea of what kind of prestige we're working with here at DBIA. I'm only half kidding. Very impressive people, yes. Braggadocious and asking for accolades? Not at all. Maybe, though, you know someone who could be the next DLA or Brunelleschi Award winner. It's never too early to start thinking about it for 2026. And finally, a personal note. I hope you end 2025 the way you want to. I know I'm ready to see it into that long good night. From 2 surgeries to my elderly dog having a stroke and some other wild moments in the last 12 months, I am truly just happy to have made it to this December episode with you. DBIA, this show, and our sponsor, Archons, an Autodesk Platinum partner. Learn more at archons.us/DBIA. And of course, those of you listening actually made the challenges this year easier to manage. This show is a highlight of what I do, and I hope DBIA and the Design Build Delivers podcast have brought some highlights to you too. If not, well, challenge accepted for 2026. We will see you in January with Lisa Washington and incoming National Board Chair Virginia McAllister. Until then, Aaron Looney and the Design Build Delivers podcast are going to take a short rest. You should too.